that mean we're good to go or something? We should start saying something? Okay. Good morning. Good morning to you folks too. My name is Dan. I work at Guaranty RV. This is my boss. This is Dave Taylor, the fixed.
I'm his teammate, not his boss.
Fixed operations manager for Guaranty RV. Once a month we get together and we share our, we came up with this about 70 years of experience in the industry. We are here to give you information, to answer questions, and kind of share what we know. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Haven't done this in a month and I forgot what I was supposed to say. Anyway, this one's pretty much winterizing and it's Dave Taylor. So I'm not doing too good. I'm going to have Dave Taylor take over.
Well, great. I don't mind.
Sorry.
He says we've been doing this 70 years between the two of us, and I've only been doing it 4. So I'm not saying he's getting close to retirement. He's getting really close. So I'm going to use this board quite a bit, so I'll get this out of the way. Winterizing. We always know who and who didn't do it right just about spring, because we started getting all these panic phone calls. And people usually decide to put water in their unit to go camping the day before they go camping. Nobody brings them out. That's why join us in spring and we'll kind of go over what you need to do in spring to make sure for your first trip you're ready to go on your first trip. Because we're going to have somewhere between first nice sunny day, 30 to 50 calls, and everybody's getting ready to go out that next weekend, and I can't get them all in. So instantly, we're the bad guys. Try to get in as many as we can. So what we like to do is not charge you to bring it in and have us fix something that you can keep from breaking originally. We get a lot of freeze damage. Some of it's minor toilet valves. You know, $60, $80, $100, you're out and down the street. Water pumps, $300, $400, you're down the road. Plumbing, depending on where it is, $100 to $1,000 or more. Water heaters start to get very expensive. We dug this one out of, probably a couple, 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Dug this out of the recycling tank. This is a manual water heater, however the back part looks the same. So this is what most people see when they open their door on the outside, is either a manual light or an automatic DSI, direct spark ignition water heater. What they don't see is on the back here, this big aluminum tank. Usually there's styrofoam around this tank. So when we install these, we cut a hole a certain amount of inches and it fits right in. I've seen these tanks swell up so big before they actually split, they won't come out. Depending on the location, we have to get in there with a Sawzall, hopefully disassemble cabinets, move couches, whatever we have to. We have to take a Sawzall and start cutting this tank apart to get it out. So this can be very expensive. Fortunately, this one, all it did was expanded enough where it blew up on the side. Unfortunately, it was towards the top, so they probably didn't lose too much water into the unit. However, I guarantee you what happened with this is he went and got ready for his first camp trip, put the water to it, and a whole bunch of water found its way out of that hole all over the unit. Hopefully, he didn't turn the water on and go inside to have lunch. So what we're going to do is hopefully keep you from freezing the most important parts. Depending on your unit, you may have an ice maker. That's kind of a different animal, and I'll kind of go over that. Does anybody here have an ice maker in their unit? Oh, great. The one guy is going to throw me off. We'll go over that. Mainly it's water pumps, toilet valves, faucets, shower mixers, and water heaters. So, first step with winterizing is you need to get the fresh tank drained. somewhere under your unit, you should know where the fresh tank drain is. You need to get that water started. If you're going to winterize tomorrow, start draining it today. Depending on how much water you have in there, that drain can sometimes be pretty small. It can take a long time to get 50 to 100 gallons of water out of your unit. Once you've done that, we want to go inside, and we want to go underneath somewhere should be the low point drains. They're going to be usually, nowadays, the last 4 or 5 years, they're going to be red and blue coming out the bottom. So you should have a fresh tank drain and the low point drains. You're going to take those off. You're going to go inside the unit. You're going to open all your shower faucet, your bathroom faucet. Boy, it's flat coming down. Kitchen faucet, open it all up. When you do that, water's going to come out those low point drains. Basically what that does is breaks the vacuum. All water up here in your RV will come out the bottom. Most of it. There's going to be stuff stuck in your pump and fixtures, toilet valves. So once you've done that, you're going to go back outside, put the low point drain caps back on. I'm going to give you 2 ways to winterize. We're going to have what we call a West Coast winterization and an East Coast winterization. We're going to blow air through the system, so that's the West Coast. You're going to put the caps back on. You're going to go to your water heater. You're going to find a plug hole. All water heaters have an external plug. Can you hear me back there over this rain? That is coming down. Not to change subjects, does anybody notice it doesn't matter how hard you water your lawn, you get one rainstorm and it's green again overnight. So you're going to open this plug or pull it out. You're going to let all this water drain out. 99% of units have a bypass on the back. Right now, this bypass is set up for cold water to come in, goes through this valve into here, hot water comes out. There's a bypass right here that's closed. So what you're going to do is, once you pull that plug out and let the water heater drain out, you're going to close these and open this. That allows for, when we're blowing the unit out with the blow nozzle, for the air to come in here and back out. So you're blowing the cold lines and the hot lines at the same time.
So if I could,
Yeah.
all of the valves are the same where the handle indicates the direction.
Direction, yes.
Okay. So if
You bring it this way, your water's traveling right along this handle.
okay.
You do that, you stop the water. So that allows us to blow hot and cold at the same time. Threw me off. Where was I going?
I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. I just get on a roll one.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you've done then by doing this and putting your low point drains on again is closed your system back up so it will accept air to blow through. So at that point on the outside of your unit where you have your city water hookup, they sell a blowout nozzle. I have a feeling you're going to get one if we have one. Basically, it looks like a tire where you put air in an air valve for a tire. You're going to screw that in. The best thing to do if you're going to do this every year yourself is take that valve, go down to Jerry's, go to the plumbing section, find all the fittings with an on and an off valve. Because the one they sell on these other Amazons and eBays, you have to stand there and hold it for 5-10 minutes. If you make one, you can just hook to your air hose. You can just turn it on and off with a valve, stand back, watch the flowers grow, whatever you're doing while it blows it out. So you're going to hook up to that. turn your compressor on. You're going to start letting the air go through it. What it's going to do is blow all the water that's in the low spots of the, you have low spots in your plumbing. It's going to blow all that up and through your faucets, fixtures, mixers. There's one right there. You can actually get a valve where you can shut it on and off. That blows all the water out. Now, since the night before you drained your freshwater tank, what you're going to do is turn your water pump on while the air pressure is going, and it's going to blow most of the water out of those pump valves in your water pump. Go ahead.
What PSI do you use?
That's a tricky one. I use full pressure because I remember to open all the valves and everything. If you have all your valves open, you can't put enough pressure through it to hurt anything. What happens is some people put all the full pressure to it and they forgot to open all your faucets inside. When you do that, then you're adding way too much pressure and you'll blow stuff up. So you can even do that with low pressure. I would say 60 to 80 PSI. I use 120, 125 out of mine. Once you get doing this and you've done it 2 or 3 or 4 times, give it everything she's got. Because not only is the air pushing the water out, the amount of air coming through, the volume, is going to dry some of the low spots. I leave mine hooked up 10 minutes. My compressor just goes and goes and goes. I want as much water out as I can. So while you're blowing the air through it, turn your water pump on so it can spit any water in the valves into the line to get blown out. Now, we call this a poop stick. We have them. Every technician's got 1 or 2 of them. This one's never been used, so I'll hold it down here. After you've used it the first time, you don't hold it down here. Because what we do with this is, you push the foot valve on your toilet, and you drop this in, so it holds the valve open, either a knife valve or a ball valve. It holds that open. So that when you're blowing, it's just like you're stepping on the foot pedal. Important part, the top of your poop stick has to be wider than the hole in the valve. If not, you drop it in and you watch it go all the way to the bottom. Then you come in and we charge a whole bunch to get it out. Because people think, oh, that'll just stay in there, it won't hurt nothing. I can guarantee you it'll find its way right over your evacuation port, and then you're in trouble. So have one. We usually stick a wire on it and hang it in the shop. And you don't have to stand in there and hold the valve open for 10 minutes. Okay, so at that point, you've blown everything out. You're going to go back in. I personally, that's when I take the low point drain caps off again. So all the caps are off. My preference is to leave them off. Some people say they like to put them on so spiders don't get in there. I've never seen spiders get up in there. As long as you make sure you've got all the water out, you can put your caps back on. What happens is people they winterize their unit next to the house and then they pull it over to the barn. Well, these fittings that go in the bottom of the tank stick up about 1/2 inch. So even though you have no water coming out, there's 3/8 to 1/2 inch of water still in the bottom of your fresh tank. If that freezes, it won't hurt anything because there's room for expansion. That's what kills stuff, is water's expansion. So they put the cap on and then they move it. Well, that water is sloshed around and filled those 2 hoses coming out the bottom of the unit. Well, then they go to put water in it next year and they realize that has frozen and busted the bottoms of the pipes sticking out of the. So if you're going to winterize it, leave it where it's at. Put your caps on. You're welcome to put your plug back in the water heater. Again, there's going to be a little water in the bottom, but it's not enough to expand and break anything. That brings us to the next thing. So let's finish the winterization. You've done all that. I leave all my upper valves, shower mixer, faucets, I just leave them on. Just remember next year, when you go to de-winterize, you're going to go in reverse action. Before you hook the hose up, you want to go in and make sure all the faucets are closed so that when you start putting water to it, and my wife's already put the kitchen sink cutting board back over it, that when I put water to it, the water isn't hitting that and running off the floor, because I've been there. So you close everything back up, add water to your fresh tank, turn on your water pump, and then start purging the system, going to each valve. Put your foot on the toilet valve until the water comes back through. We'll go over that in our spring. Then, as long as you get all the water out, or the air back out, you're ready to go camping again. And I'm going to give you about a 100% chance you're not going to have anything frozen if you do it right. Okay, so this hole, this plug here, the bottom of this tank, you'll see that plug is above the bottom a little bit. So this always holds water. Your fresh water coming in, any contaminants, heavy waters, calcium, are all going to sit at the bottom of this. Once a year while you're winterizing, after you pull that plug, your tank saver, and again, you can make your own down at Jerry's, you'll have forever, or you can buy one of these. You're going to hook this to your garden hose, turn it on and stick it in that hole. You're going to wash that tank out. Because if not, that comes out. That's about a third of what came out of a tank this size. It's not oatmeal. He says it looks like his grandma's oatmeal and probably tastes the same, but it is not good. It'll rot your tank out. You'll start to smell when you're running hot water. So wash your tank out. It takes 5 minutes. These are very, very inexpensive.
So you do that every year?
Oh yeah.
You should do that a couple times a year.
Couple times a year, depending on where you go. If you stay around the Northwest, you're pretty okay. If you go south, New Mexico, Los Angeles, Southern California, Texas, the further you get south, the harder the water gets. So, in saying that, you start with a filter. You know, some of these big motorhomes have these $1,000 filter systems. Anything helps. This is what I run. I use on a 36-foot fifth wheel. This will get the big chunks out. You know, you can buy dual systems that'll get right down to the millionth of a trillionth of a micron, and the water you're drinking is pure. You know, they get the big chunks out. Okay, now a lot of the newer stuff has where you can do an East Coast winterization. It's probably the easiest way to do one. You're still going to do this with the water heater. You're still going to bypass it to get it out of the loop. It takes it out of the whole system. A lot of the new units have your tank, your water tank. The plumbing comes down into the tank, goes up to your pump. Pump sucks it up, shoots it through, and sends it up here to your toilet, your shower, your sink, and wherever you need water. What they've done is, somewhere by your water pump, they've made your pump accessible enough. They put a valve in here. It looks just like this valve, where it's a metal one. I think I've spun this thing around about 70 times. You're going to have a valve like this. What you're going to find is it's set so it sucks up and goes through there. What you can do is turn this valve. Coming off that valve is usually about a 3 or 4 foot piece of clear or white hose, nothing attached to it. Well, it's on the downhill side of the pump. So what you do is you get your RV antifreeze, take this, turn this valve, get this hose, dump it down in here, and then you'll turn the water pump on. Then you go to your toilet and you hold the valve down until you see pink stuff coming out. Then you go to your shower on it until you see the pink stuff coming out. And you do this through the whole system. After you've drained the fresh tank, you can. That basically replaces the water with an antifreeze. Now, people think antifreeze doesn't freeze. It will freeze. What it does not do is expand. So, if you come in and there's a antifreeze icicle hanging off your faucet, it's okay. Then next spring, all you have to do is put water back in your fresh tank, turn the water pump on, go to the valve, push it until all the pink stuff's white and clear again. It's a potable antifreeze. It's not like stuff in your car, so it's not going to hurt you. And that's the easiest, quickest way to do a winterize. It takes a little more of the antifreeze because we're pumping it through the system, but it's $3 or $4 a gallon. Once you're done doing a blowout winterization, you want to stick the antifreeze in your P-traps. P-traps are designed so that they hold water right in there. The main reason for that is to keep smell from coming back up. But that water will freeze and break this plumbing right here. So you put a couple cups of that down each P-trap and your shower trap. If you're pumping it through the system, you don't need to put it in your P-trap. You've already ran some down in there. Does that make sense?
You do it that way, you don't have to use two low point drains on it. Okay.
You can if you want. I just take them off to get a little bit of the water out and then put them back on. If not, when you run that system through the system, it will mix with whatever water's in that low point too.
That certainly sounds like an easier way to, not one better than the other.
Well, I can guarantee if you do this and you get this coming through everything, you'll never have an issue. But there's always a chance for a little bit of water to still stay in a valve or something somewhere. When we get our new units in from the East Coast, starting about now, everything that comes to us from Indiana, anything that way, we'll have this in the whole system. Then we have to add fresh water to pump it out. Around here, our units have as many units as we have. We blow them all out with air. But there is a percentage that every now and again we didn't quite get it all out of this or that. However, some don't have this valve.
We sell those valves.
If it's accessible enough for you to get to your pump, we do sell this valve and that hose. Some units didn't have this system. We do sell a bypass, where all you have is your green, your red and blue, and this is missing. We sell a bypass that goes in between so you can bypass. It all just goes right down to getting the water out and replacing it with something that won't expand.
We just got a rate, and I have no idea what that pump is on it.
What kind of unit you got?
Winnebago
Spirit.
Spirit?
2021.
That's
And part of the stuff is in the
Class
bed.
C,
That's
right?
a Class C one.
a lot of it's going to be under the bed. Your fresh tank?
Yeah.
Yep,
We
the
have
water pump.
lift up the mattress and the valve down there somewhere.
Yeah, there's an access panel plywood that you take out and boom, it's right there.
It's just a little
That's-
tiny,
I'm sorry,
it's a
you're,
very small area to get into. We don't know how to get into it.
Stuff that's bigger than that.
You should be able to get to it fairly easy if you decide, and it should more than likely have this and that.
Okay.
Your water heater is going to have access. Most of the time there's access to the back of this water heater somehow. either a panel with 4 screws or most of the time these are pretty accessible. And to find it, just look for your outside, and then of course it'd just be inside behind it.
It seemed like when we talked to the service here on when we got it, they said this winterize, all you have to do is just close that one valve, so I don't know, or open that one valve.
If you have this, sometimes they have a valve right here that's a 3-way valve. Instead of having 3 valves, they'll have 1. When you turn it blocks off this and this. It just runs it around the corner. But one way allows water in and water out. And the other way you turn it only allows water to go here, up, and out. They do have some 3-way valves. And then next spring you'll get confused on which way you turned it the first time and turn it back, and it'll take you a couple minutes. But usually what I suggest for people to do is if it is a single valve, to take a Sharpie or something and write on the plumbing for the valve which way to turn it. But there's not a lot to it. We see a lot of people that they gamble. If it's in a shop where you're not getting a lot of wind to it, pretty safe in Oregon unless we have one of those where we have 7, 8, 9 days below freezing, then it doesn't matter where it is. Most of the time in Oregon we have a couple of days where it gets 18 to 20 degrees, but it still gets 60 during the day, or 55. Well, at 60 degrees, your RV is going to suck up that heat, and it'll be its own radiator, and it takes a lot to freeze up an RV. It's that extended length of cold that does it. And once it decides it's got there, it'll freeze up within an hour.
One issue kind of associated with that is we have a holding tank heater. Like that?
Now, that's a holding tank heater. That's basically going to be for just your holding tanks. It's not going to help anything up here.
Okay.
And
that's when you start using the unit on it, or
right. The holding tank heaters really help when you're camping in the unit. You want to go to Montana and visit your cousin, and it's winter, or you're over in Bend, or if you do winter camping and you plug in, you turn those on, and it keeps your full tanks from freezing. But
Stay a caution if I could. Don't just turn the heaters on with the tank empty because it'll melt the bottom of the tank.
yeah,
Make sure that you've got fluid
something in there.
That flushing out thing, we're snowbirds and we have a rig that we live down in California.
Nice.
And so I'm sure it's full of stuff because we've never done that. That flushing out.
The one down in California.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't know
have you?
that.
I've done that. I put the new anode
Anode rod in, yeah.
Sorry.
See, he's taking good care of you, and you didn't even know.
But I haven't done. I only did it about once or 2 years. So
So it should be done twice a year to get that stuff
Well,
out.
if you got time, how dirty was it when you washed out the? Did you have some stuff come out?
It wasn't. Well, the first time I did it, I mean, that was everything was gone.
Yeah.
I did it more regularly on it, and it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
There was still residue in there on it.
Yeah, you'll kind of get the feel for it if the water supply you're getting where you're staying down there is fairly clean. You may only have to do it every once a year or once every 2 years. Some places the water isn't as good as others. So it's like checking fluid in your batteries. We tell everybody to check it every 30 to 60 days, depending on how much you use it and plug it in. After a while, you get to know your unit, and you know you only need to check them every 4 months because nothing's happened yet.
Do we need to do that in Oregon? We have, that's a permanent RV down there, so the one we have here, we've always had a fifth wheel before, and then we have that Class C, and it's so different.
Yeah. Big difference in a Class C and a fifth wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is our first year of winterizing it and stuff.
Yeah. If you have questions, call us. sometimes it takes us an hour or so to get back to you, but we answer questions all day long for people. If you get stuck, just call and ask for me, and as soon as I'm out of a meeting or down here chewing on Dan, I'll call you back.
Just don't get too eager on that.
You got some good stuff to talk about now?
Yeah, I got a few things. You did a great job. I'm just going to make some other final point. Yeah, that's it.
And if you have some questions, go ahead.
Okay, I have another question now. Based on electrical, of the battery and disconnecting. You're understanding us, we have a place we can plug it in all the time for the energy. But they said that runs down the battery on it, or ruins the battery. So the battery should be disconnected.
Well, are you storing it or living in it?
Storing.
If you're storing it, as soon as you plug in, it's going to turn the disconnect on. Because you have an electronic disconnect in that Winnebago.
Yeah.
So it's not going to matter what you do with that disconnect. As soon as you plug in, it's going to start charging your batteries. It'll, depending on how much voltage your battery needs, it'll float charge, bulk charge, do whatever it needs to. But if you're going to store it up here, you need to have somebody come every 30 to 60 days and inspect the fluid in your batteries.
Really?
Oh yeah, it'll continue to, when it gets to the top charge, it will stop charging. Then,
can you put the disconnect on though and just leave it then for a long period of time?
If you have an older coach, before 17, they didn't sometimes have the smart converters that do what Dave's talking about, floating and equalizing. They will just continue to charge. But on your coach, yours is new enough, you can plug it in and not worry about it. He and I both have opinions on that, but it's not going to hurt anything as far as the battery.
Unless you leave them long enough to evaporate the fluid out of the battery. Because we see that a lot with brand new units. We see units that are 8 months old come in here and the batteries are dry. And I can't warranty a dry battery.
We'll leave it 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
So it should be.
I can't guarantee it.
Even on
All I
hooking,
can,
even on hooking the battery and everything, it's still good.
Well, if you have hooked the battery, there's no reason to leave it plugged in. I mean, you know what I mean? The battery's what cleans your electricity to go to your inside stuff. Your battery's a filter. So if you unhook the battery, it'll still work, but it won't work right.
Okay.
Does that make
still
sense?
needs to be had water in it or checked.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't guarantee, even with the new converter, if you leave it for 5 or 6 months, that you may not drop down past the top of your lead plates. And if you do, the battery at that point isn't in good shape. So, but you're better to leave it plugged in than not plugged in. So, that's the one thing about plugging them in and just walking away. It's kind of like your house. If it was your house and you just lock the front doors to the left, you don't know if your water heater's going to explode, or it's just, there's things that nobody knows until it happens.
What Dave's comment was, and this is absolutely right, you can leave it plugged in, but you should really visit those batteries every couple of months, even though you've got the new type of converter, just to make sure that the water level is up and nothing crazy is going on.
So if you have family up here that can just go by, that you feel, you can take the top off the batteries and look at them and make sure they're okay, I would. If not, try it 1 year, see what happens. If you can get by 5 or 6 months and you come back and everything's okay, then you're probably okay. As your battery gets aged, 2 or 3 years, I would pretty much guarantee you won't make it in 5 months.
There's probably a lot of difference in the quality of the battery too.
Correct. And if you come to one of our RV 101, I can't call it that, RV Basics, I know it's not until February, March?
January or February, I don't know.
We do an RV 101, and that's where we go over a lot of new owner stuff. The batteries, everything.
I don't know if you'll get to it or not, but one of the issues I looked at on here was that you say you disable the water heater operation by removing the fuse. Is that whole system? Or the other one?
You can unhook. On the outside, you're going to have a control board with a little fuse on it. You can unhook it there, or you can go inside the fuse panel and plug it. The main reason we put that in there is in case somebody goes in and tries to light it when it's empty, doesn't have any water in it. If it's your unit and you're familiar with it, you know that you don't have water in it. You're not going to go in and burn stuff up. On mine, the only thing I do is shut the 110 breaker off for the element. So sometimes I do go in there and plug it in, and my 110 my water heater has an automatic 110 switch on the outside that I never play with. So when I plug it in, mine starts to heat water even if I don't have water in it. So you can pull fuses if you want, whatever you feel best doing. It's your baby. We just show you how to get the water out and not damage stuff.
Okay.
What other point on here on this? What you call the eastern or the
East Coast.
You still drain your tanks in the same tank.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah. And I'm sure he'll find some stuff I didn't go over. It's hard to do this in an hour and a half and try to explain exactly what, I mean, it hasn't been that long yet, but by the time we're done. So anyway, this is the basic winterize sheet that we put this together years ago, and we've been kind of updating it. If you're interested in a copy, you can email us, I guess. Is that how to do it, Daryl? And I can scan it and send them a copy if they want. It's just the outline that we go by. Dave was talking about the RV antifreeze. It does not freeze. I mean, it does freeze, but it doesn't expand. And there are some people out there that will buy a concentrate and put water in it. But the problem is that water will expand. So the whole point of RV antifreeze is a non-toxic, it's an antifreeze. It'll freeze hard as a rock. It won't expand, so it won't damage your plumbing and the tanks and that. Don't buy cheap stuff, because the cheap stuff doesn't have the FDA color rated dye, and you have to be careful about some of the antifreeze. So get good quality RV antifreeze. One of the things that he usually talks about, in the fall, it's not a good time to fill your tanks and let this soak, but you can do it in the early spring. Put some chemical, and we use Happy Camper, in a bucket, dump it in down the toilet, and let it sit in the spring after the threat of freezing is gone. What this does is it'll eat any organic tissue or beta cellulose, which is toilet paper. It'll actually digest that. And you start out in the spring with a nice sweet tank, and then you use a couple scoops of this every time you dump and reload. Good stuff. This is always a really important topic for us. When we need to talk about, for all of the people out there that have a used motorhome or trailer or camper, a lot of them have a built-in filter under the sink. Now is the time you remove that filter. Don't throw it away until you've come down and bought a new filter to match it. But in the fall, when you're done, you remove that filter because it's got crud and stuff in it, and you want to get that out of the system. You don't want to flush it out and put antifreeze through it or air through it, because that just pushes all the contaminant right out into the line. You don't want to do that. Remove it, bypass it, go buy a new one, put the new one in the spring. Very important part of the process. In our basics conversation that we have, Dee and I, years ago, we've done this for so many years, we used to argue about this a lot. And I'm kind of giving into them again because this is a very good product and you need to have it in here in the fall and the winter, especially if you're plugging your coach in and there's heat in it. Inside the RV, you may have it at 50 degrees. Outside the RV, it could be 20 degrees. The problem is the window frames are all aluminum. And so it's 50 inside, all that 50-degree air hits that 28-degree aluminum and the moisture condenses against the aluminum. And now you've got a water ring around all of the windows and all the doors. That creates rot and mildew. So especially if you're putting heat into your coach, you need to put some kind of dehydrator, air dehydration system in there. Dave likes this. He's got a lot more money than I do. It's just a bag that fills with water and then when you're done you pinch it. There's several different kinds. I like the Dry-Z Air because it's cheap. It's been around forever just like me and I'm comfortable with it. But you need to do something to get that moisture, especially if it's plugged in, especially if you're living in it. When you stay in a coach and you cook on the stove, for every gallon of propane that you use, you get, it's like a third of a gallon of water out of that gas combustion. You breathe, you sweat, you take a shower, all of that creates moisture. And you need to make sure that you have 2 or 3 of these, one in the kitchen area, one in the bathroom, one in the bedroom area, maybe one in the living area, depending on the size, to get all of that moisture out of it, because that's a real killer. Very important. Now's the time to start doing it.
How long do those last, the dryers?
I'm sorry?
How long do those last?
Until they fill up with water. It depends on how much moisture you have. It's like your water filter. How long does the water filter last? Water filters last until the water flow slows down because the filter's starting to get plugged. If you notice your water flow slowing down, put a new filter in. It'll come right back.
You think that lasts no longer than dry fit? Like a thing of dry fit? Would you
Lasts longer than what?
than dry fit?
It's the same chemicals. This is just a more sanitary way of doing it. They use a salt, a potassium salt, to absorb the water. And they can only absorb so much, and then they just stop absorbing water. So, and this one has a bag, and that thing gets pretty full. Pitch it out. You know,
I think I change mine about every 3 months, 3 to 4 months.
he would know that because
And there's nothing wrong with the other stuff. I just forget that it's on the kitchen table in the little bowl. And then I go down to get fuel in it, and the next thing I know, I got all this everywhere. And so I pay the extra just so I can hang it, set it, and forget it.
This is an interesting little product. Basically, sometimes some of the manufacturers on the black tank, it's on the passenger side, and then they run a pipe all the way over to the termination valve behind the driver's wheel. And poop gets stuck in, or lays in that tank coming across, and so you take your cap off, and you get this stuff all over your head. So if you have one of those coaches, you put this on at the termination. So so that when you take the cap off, it doesn't, all of that plumbing or that stuff laying in the pipe doesn't come out on your hands. It's just got its own little valve. These are about 20 bucks, and they are a real lifesaver. They will
put
keep
one of
your
those on
system
every
safe.
rig I've owned has one of those.
These are really cool.
They're just like an emergency, just in case valve.
Absolutely. The last thing that I have to talk about, only because he did all the talking for the winterization, on our website where you guys are watching this, we have a list of all the parts that we talk about
In all the seminars.
in all the seminars. So if you're curious about, you want to know about the antifreeze or the cabin camper or any of the parts, Daryl, the famous Mr. Behind the Scenes, he has put that on the website.
Guaranty RV parts.com.
Yeah.
And then you should be able to go to RV Seminar Products, and that'll go over everything. Our sealants and side sealants and cleansers and the rubber roof treatments and lubes and everything we talk about in these will be there. And if you have questions, call and ask. That's one thing we're good about. We get a lot of 5-star reviews on people and say, you know, we didn't buy here, we were traveling through, this happened, that happened. We called them and they talked us through it, and away we went. So,
We really don't care where you bought it. I mean, we like to sell stuff, obviously, but we're here, we're service. We do service. Our intention is to help people share what we know so that they can go do what we do. So, anything else you want to talk about?
you know, it was kind of short because I didn't have, usually we have 20 to 30 people here and 600 questions, but boy, we really breezed through this one. If I missed anything, make sure to tell me. I'm sure you will. I'm sure we'll hear about it. Daryl will say something. So everybody have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you for the 101. I believe it's in
RV Basics.
RV Basics. In January, February, we'll have an